There's a sensation many of us know intimately, even though we rarely speak about it openly. It's that subtle yet pervasive perception of being broken, as if inside us there's a fundamental crack, a manufacturing defect that makes us different from others. Others seem whole, complete, functional. We instead feel like a vase that leaks water, unable to hold what it should contain. This isn't simple insecurity. It's something deeper. It's the existential sensation of not being worthy of life itself, of not deserving the place we occupy in the world. And paradoxically, the more we try to hide this fracture, the heavier it becomes to carry. To understand this sensation, we must take a step back and ask ourselves, where does the idea come from that we should be whole? Who established the standard of what it means to be enough? We grow up in a world that constantly bombards us with parameters. At school, they measure us with grades. In family, often unconsciously, we compare ourselves with siblings or with parental expectations. In society, we're exposed to images of perfection, perfect bodies, brilliant careers, idyllic relationships, lives apparently without shadows. We live immersed in an ocean of impersonal expectations that tell us who we should be. Anonymous voices that whisper what success looks like, how we should feel, what we should achieve. And when we don't conform to these invisible standards, the sensation of being defective is born within us. But there's something even more subtle. The sense of being broken often arises from early experiences of emotional invalidation. Moments when our needs weren't seen, our emotions weren't welcomed, our essence wasn't recognized. An obvious trauma isn't necessary. Repeated experiences of feeling invisible, of not being understood, of having to hide parts of ourselves to be accepted are enough. This sensation of being broken manifests in surprisingly different ways, yet all connected by a common thread. There's obsessive perfectionism. If only I could do everything perfectly, perhaps I could hide my fundamental inadequacy. Every mistake becomes confirmation of what we already knew. There's something wrong with us. The perfectionist doesn't seek excellence out of passion, but for emotional survival. There's self-sabotage. Just when things are going well, we do something that destroys everything. As if deep down we believe we don't deserve success, love, happiness. It's easier to destroy ourselves before life does it, confirming our inadequacy. There's dependence on external validation. We desperately seek confirmation from others because we can't find it within ourselves. Every like, every compliment, every approval becomes oxygen for a self-esteem that can't breathe on its own. But it's temporary relief. These confirmations quickly lose effect, and we always need more. There's preventive isolation. If I'm broken, it's better that others don't notice. Better to be alone than risk being seen for what we really are. We create emotional distance, even in the most intimate relationships, convinced that if someone really knew us, they would abandon us. Here's one of the cruelest aspects of this condition. Often, those who feel most broken appear perfect from the outside. They're people who have professional success, apparently stable relationships, a life that from outside seems to work. Yet inside, there's this constant sense of imposture, the certainty that sooner or later, the mask will fall, and everyone will see the truth. This isn't just the fear of being discovered as incompetent at work. It's the fear of being discovered as fundamentally inadequate as human beings. We live in a particular form of self-deception, constantly playing the part of someone who's fine, while inside harboring the certainty of being defective. The performance becomes so convincing that even we sometimes forget we're acting. Until a moment of solitude arrives, when the mask falls, and we're face to face with that nagging sensation. Something is fundamentally wrong with me. In the social media era, this sensation has amplified exponentially. We're constantly exposed to curated and filtered versions of others' lives. We see their successes, their joys, their moments of glory. We rarely see their doubts, their fears, their sleepless nights. This creates what we could call the paradox of isolating interconnection. We're more connected than ever, yet we feel more alone and inadequate. Because we compare ourselves with idealized versions of others, while intimately knowing every one of our flaws, every one of our fears, every one of our failures. Comparison becomes a form of emotional self-harm. We actively seek proof of our inadequacy, scrolling through feeds that show us everything we're not, everything we haven't achieved. And each image becomes another confirmation. There's something wrong with me. The digital age has created a new kind of mirror, one that reflects not reality, but a carefully constructed illusion. And we measure ourselves against these illusions, finding ourselves perpetually lacking. But here we must make a deeper reflection. What if the sensation of being incomplete weren't a defect, but a fundamental characteristic of human existence? Anxiety isn't a disorder to cure, but the inevitable consequence of our freedom and our awareness. We are unfinished beings, in constant becoming, never definitively made. This is what distinguishes us from everything else in nature. Animals live in the immediacy of instinct. They don't question their existence, don't wonder if they're enough. We humans live in the painful awareness of the gap between what we are and what we could be. This distance isn't an error. It's the condition itself of our humanity. The problem isn't feeling incomplete. The problem is interpreting this incompleteness as a personal defect rather than as the very structure of human existence. We're all broken in this sense. We all live with the awareness of not being fully realized, of having unexpressed potentials, of carrying within us contradictions and shadows. Our culture sells us the idea that we should be whole, psychologically stable, emotionally balanced, always consistent with ourselves. But this is a dangerous fantasy. We are complex beings, full of conflicting parts, contradictory desires, ambivalent emotions. This isn't pathology. It's richness. We contain multitudes. We are vast, contradictory, impossible to reduce to a single coherent narrative. The problem arises when we internalize the idea that we should be monolithic, always coherent, perfectly aligned. When one part of us feels sadness while another wants to be strong, we feel broken. When we desire solitude but also connection, we feel confused. When we feel anger toward someone we love, we feel wrong. But what would happen if we accepted that it's normal to contain opposites? That our psyche isn't a perfectly constructed building, but a living ecosystem where different parts coexist, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in tension? The demand for perfect consistency is itself the source of our suffering. We're trying to be something that no human being has ever been or ever will be. There's another crucial aspect. We often feel broken because we don't correspond to what society defines as normal. But who decides what's normal? Normality is a statistical concept transformed into a moral imperative. If the majority does or feels something, that becomes the norm. Those who deviate are perceived and perceive themselves as deviant, inadequate. But think of great creative minds, visionaries, innovators. They've often been people who didn't fit, who felt and thought differently. Their brokenness from the norm was the source of their uniqueness. The categories of normal and pathological are social constructions used to maintain order and control. Feeling broken can be the result of having internalized these external standards, of having made our own a definition of normality that doesn't belong to us. We've learned to see ourselves through society's eyes, and those eyes are often harsh, unforgiving, measuring us against impossible standards. When we feel broken, our instinctive reaction is to try to repair ourselves. We read self-help books, go to therapy, try mindfulness techniques, change our diet, do yoga, all in an attempt to fix ourselves. But there's a subtle paradox in this approach. The more we obsessively try to repair ourselves, the more we reinforce the idea that we're actually broken. The compulsive search for self-improvement can become another form of self-rejection. It doesn't mean we shouldn't seek growth or healing, but there's a fundamental difference between self-improvement that arises from self-love and that which arises from self-rejection. The first says, "I'm okay as I am, and I want to continue evolving." The second says, "I'm not enough. I must become someone else." We set conditions for ourselves. I'll be okay when I've achieved this, when I've changed in this way, when I no longer feel this. But this traps us in a future that never arrives. There's always another milestone, another flaw to fix, another version of ourselves that seems just out of reach. The trap is this: we can't hate ourselves into a version of ourselves that we love. What would happen if we stopped trying to repair ourselves and simply started accepting ourselves? Not a passive and resigned acceptance, but a radical and compassionate acceptance. Radical acceptance doesn't mean giving up on growth. It means recognizing, in this moment, I am exactly as I should be, given all the factors that brought me here. My history, my wounds, my fears, all of this is a legitimate part of who I am. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is the result of infinite causes and conditions. If we feel inadequate, this isn't a personal defect, but the natural result of all the experiences we've lived. How could we be different from how we are? This doesn't justify harmful behaviors, but it frees us from the tyranny of self-condemnation. We can recognize that we want to change certain aspects of ourselves without having to hate ourselves for how we are now. Acceptance is the ground from which real change grows. Not change driven by shame and self-hatred, but change rooted in compassion and understanding. There's an ancient practice called kintsugi. When a ceramic vase breaks, instead of hiding the cracks, they repair them with gold, making the breakage part of the object's beauty. The scars become art. Our emotional wounds, our moments of breaking, our experiences of inadequacy, all these things have the potential to become sources of wisdom, empathy, and depth, not despite being painful, but precisely because they are. Those who have never suffered loneliness struggle to understand those who feel alone. Those who have never doubted themselves cannot truly meet another's doubt. Our fractures make us human, connect us to others, allow us to access layers of experience that superficial perfection cannot reach. The suffering we've endured, the inadequacy we've felt, the times we felt broken, these aren't wasted experiences. They teach us empathy, humility, compassion. They strip away our pretenses and bring us face to face with what's real. When we finally accept that we don't have to be perfect, that we don't have to prove anything, that we don't have to be enough, according to external standards, something dissolves. There's an incredible freedom in admitting, yes, I have flaws. Yes, I have limits. Yes, sometimes I struggle. And that's okay. This isn't surrender, it's liberation. It's the end of the constant internal war, of energy wasted trying to be something we're not. It's the beginning of the possibility of being authentically ourselves. Authenticity doesn't mean being constantly positive or always at peace. It means allowing ourselves to be human, complex, contradictory, sometimes confused, sometimes hurt. It means stopping performing and starting living. When we stop pretending to be whole, we paradoxically become more whole. When we stop hiding our cracks, we discover that those cracks were never the problem. The problem was the exhausting effort to conceal them. The crucial passage is transforming the relationship we have with ourselves. Instead of being our harshest critic, we can become our most compassionate friend. Practicing self-compassion means speaking to ourselves with kindness, recognizing that difficulties are part of human experience, and maintaining awareness of our feelings without being overwhelmed by them or denying them. It means treating ourselves as we would treat someone we deeply care about, with patience, with understanding, with the recognition that we're doing our best with what we have. At the end of this journey, we arrive at a simple but profound truth. We are not broken. We are becoming. We are works of art in progress, and this incompleteness isn't a defect, but the very condition of life. Because in the end, life doesn't ask us to be perfect. It asks us to be present, authentic, courageous. It asks us to live fully with all our cracks, our fears, our imperfect beauties. The question isn't, how can I stop feeling broken? The question is, can I learn to hold this sensation with compassion, recognizing it as part of my humanity, and live fully despite it, or perhaps even because of it? So the next time you feel inadequate, not enough, broken, remember, you're human, and that is more than enough. In fact, it's everything. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me. I hope you carry something from this conversation into your day, into your life. Be gentle with yourself until we meet again.